On this week's episode, we're talking with Julie Ruelle. Eating real food is something Julie has believed in for a long time. 70% of the foods in our grocery stores are ultra-processed. These foods your grandmother would not recognize. These ultra-processed foods are linked to over 32 diseases. Enriched food means all the good stuff has been taken out and all the artificial stuff has been added back in. Whole foods can be medicine, and as a healthy special initiative, get a free year of GoCoCo premium app with the code BETTER. Now to our very fun and informative conversation with Julie. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Eat Better Food Today. I'm your host, Ken Coonahan, and I'm excited to be sharing insights on why we believe that health and longevity begins with the food we eat. The goal of this podcast will be to inspire, educate, and enable folks to live a healthier life and do it affordably. My wife and I have been on this journey for over 11 years and continue to work on it every single day. Percent of the profits from this podcast will be put towards child hunger through my Santee Foundation, with the initial focus on the poor suburb in America, East Cleveland, Ohio. As a reminder, please subscribe to this podcast. Subscriptions are the lifeblood for any podcast. Our sponsor is Cleveland Kitchen. Think of Cleveland Kitchen as providing easy gut health with their fermented foods, which means better brain health with just 2 forkfuls a day. On this episode, we're grateful to have Julie Ruelle. Julie is a registered dietitian who began working in corporate wellness, conducting individual and group online and in-person coaching sessions. She went on to manage teams of RDs, registered dietitians, and in later roles built out and managed nutrition coaching programs. For the last 12 years, she has been working for health-focused CPG, consumer packaged goods companies, combining nutrition and marketing skills to launch new products, build and manage event and partnership strategies and teams, implement and manage organic influencer programs, manage content strategy, and serve as a nutrition expert for the company. In this episode, we'll explore Julie's thoughts on food health and longevity and discuss what continues to inspire her. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So my first question, which I believe is always important, good start to your day, is to ask what you had for breakfast this morning.
I was in a bit of a hurry this morning, but I managed to boil 2 eggs and have it with some avocado and a couple of sips of green juice on the side. So that is truly what I ate today, and I'm so happy it was balanced since I didn't know you were going to ask me that question.
Sometimes when people usually say I was in a rush this morning, it's usually I had a cup of coffee and I ate breakfast later or ate lunch.
I also had coffee, and I'm currently having some water, so trying to balance out my beverage choices as well.
I'm currently having water as well. I've had my coffee. So do you have any other morning routines?
To be very honest, I do Wordle every morning and Spanish. So
Okay.
try to wake up my brain a little bit while I'm waking up my body. I'm lucky enough to live in Miami, Florida now. So every morning I spend a few minutes out on my balcony, just kind of getting myself grounded and focused and ready to take on the day.
Nice. Yeah, in Cleveland I can do that now, but not so much so in January and February.
I'm a Midwesterner myself. I'm from Michigan originally, so I certainly understand the long gray winters.
Yes, exactly. But there's still sunshine out there, so it's not terrible. So another question I want to ask you on the nutrition side of things. So what you keep in your pantry at home is an important aspect of what you're going to eat at home. So if you put, a bunch of cookies and chips and other things in your pantry, you're probably going to eat those. If you have healthier foods in your pantry, probably eat those. So my question for you is, what do you have in your pantry?
Yeah, I don't have a ton in my pantry. I have some sort of staples. I have some dried fruit, apricots at the moment. I think there might be some dried pineapples in there as well that I got from a farmer's market. I have some quinoa. I actually have some Lara bars, which I think is a great on-the-go snack with very few ingredients, which I know those are the kind of things we're going to be talking about today. There is another bag of coffee for when I run out of the one in my fridge. Maybe I think there's a jar of tomato sauce. There's not much else in there. The pantry, my refrigerator and my freezer have more things than my pantry does.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and one tip I like to give to people that I am working with is if you have to have less healthy things in your pantry because you have kids or you have a partner that kind of insist on those things is to put them where you can't see them readily. So put them in a basket, honestly, like, and put them up on the top shelf. So things that are staring you right in the face are things you're much more likely to eat. So if we're
Mm,
looking at those cookies or chips or whatever they might be all day, it's much harder to say every time we see them, no, no, no. We get like the decision fatigue, and the last time you see them, you might kind of give in. So get them out of sight, out of mind.
nice. I try to in my fridge try to put the healthier foods. When you open the fridge and you see the first things you see are the healthier foods, and the other stuff is kind of up or down away somewhere.
I agree.
So, can you share your journey? You've got a lot of current roles. You work for GoCo, PreviMedica, an A2 milk company. So, I guess we'll talk about those companies, but I guess share your journey.
Yeah, I've been a dietitian for over 20 years, which sounds crazy every time I say that out loud. And things have changed a lot in the nutrition sphere since I started. There weren't as many opportunities for dietitians then as there are now. It was very much like you have clinical, you have community, you have food service. Those are sort of the three main buckets of nutrition when I started. So I did actually start my career in clinical nutrition, working for hospitals and nursing homes. And I'm very glad I have that background and experience, but I knew right away that wasn't where I wanted to be. It's a very important role, but for me, I just didn't feel like I was making as much of a difference as I wanted to be. And that's how I found sort of the corporate wellness role that I had for a number of years, where I was traveling around the country, going to different office buildings and talking to the employees about ways they could get healthier. And that really kind of sparked my love for talking with people, making a difference, and then also sort of led me into the CPG food world, which is where I landed next. I've worked for a number of better for you products, doing both the nutrition and marketing for them. In the more recent years, the last couple of years, I really did sort of miss talking to people one on one. So now I've sort of found my way back into a happy medium where with GoCoCo, I'm helping them with their education and their promotion of the product. With PreviMedica, I am working with people one on one every day. And with A2 Milk, I have a lot of years in infant formula and baby food experience. So I'm helping advise them on some of the decisions they're making as they're becoming a bigger presence in the US.
So, A2 milk. What's the deal with A2 milk? I have A2 yogurt every morning, so that's my go-to. Yeah. So,
I'm glad to hear it. So there's different types of protein in milk, and that's what A2 is referring to as the beta casein protein, which has been found to be easier to digest for many people. So it's not genetically modified in any way. It's that there are certain cows that only make the A2 protein in their milk, and those cows are, for the A2 Milk Company, are from New Zealand specifically. So all of the milk for that company comes from New Zealand. So they have a whole line of products from different milks and also infant formula made from the A2 milk.
yeah, I didn't know they made infant formula. I see the milk in the grocery store, but I didn't know about the infant formula.
Yeah, the infant formula is newer. It's been around in New Zealand and other countries for quite a while, but it's newer to the US.
Nice. Yeah. New Zealand's on my short list to visit, my wife and I. So,
I would love to get there someday as well.
it's a bit of a hike, though, so it needs some planning.
Exactly.
So, in GoCo, so talk a little bit about GoCo and kind of what that company does and is about.
Yeah, I mean that's something I love to talk about. GoCoCo stands for Go Conscious Consumer. So we're trying to help people make better food choices, and it's so aligned with what I've been believing in for such a long time, which is eat real food.
Right.
And I think your podcast and platform are very much aligned with that as well. Over 70% of the products in a supermarket are considered ultra processed. And I'd love to just take a minute and talk about what ultra processed means, because that's a term that's relatively newer, I think, in our vernacular, but we've been hearing it a little bit more and more, which makes me happy. But a lot of people still don't know exactly what it is. And one way I like to think of it is it's maybe things that you wouldn't have in your home kitchen. The things you asked me about in my pantry. It's things your grandparents wouldn't recognize as food potentially. And there is a difference between ultra processed and processed. Processing can have its place certainly in our food supply. When we freeze vegetables to extend their shelf life, that's processing. If we make milk into yogurt, that's processing. Those things are not inherently bad. It's what we do to them after that that can make them ultra processed. It's when we add preservatives and dyes and several forms of added sugar, maybe also artificial sugars. So they're extending the shelf life, the taste, but they're not necessarily adding any nutritional value. And they can be created to be inexpensive and a bit addictive even.
They're very addictive. I think they're made to be addictive, which is
I,
part of the problem.
Exactly. And to kind of circle back on what I'm doing with GoCoCo, our mission for that company is just to help people make healthier food choices. So what GoCoCo has is an app that you can scan any food with a barcode, and it'll give you a score of 0 to 10 on how healthy that food is. And it's based on things like how much sugar is in there, added sugar, the refined grains, the type of fats that are in there. And then a big part of it is the ultra processed ingredients. So, what are those things on the food label we can't pronounce? Are they good for us? Are they vitamins? What are they? So, we identify what ultra processed markers are in there, what they are there for, and then we provide the education so that people can make the choice that's best for them. We're not telling you what to eat, we're just providing you the information so that you can make the decision that's best for you and your family.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I usually talk about if it has more than 6 ingredients, usually the seventh, eighth, and so forth ingredients are some of those words you can't even pronounce, let alone understand. So it sounds like this
Exactly.
would be an easy way to also be able to turn over a package and figure out if it's good to eat or not.
Yep, exactly. We're just trying to give you another tool in your tool chest to make better choices. I very much believe, and so does GoCoCo, in providing education to go along with it. Like you said, like, are there more than 6 ingredients? Like you said, probably not good ones towards the end of that list there. Glad my one bar that I mentioned in my pantry typically has less than 6. So I did all right with your formula as well. And, we really are focused on trying to help people reduce their consumption of ultra processed foods and eat more real foods. So we have another feature in there where you can take a picture of anything that you're eating and it'll analyze the percentage of ultra processed foods and the percentage of fruits and vegetables. And you can track it over time and set goals to kind of help you to consume more fruits and vegetables and less ultra processed foods.
Okay, so we've got a definition of ultra processed foods, and then whole foods are basically simple ingredients. I mean, apples, bananas, olives, oranges, that kind of stuff. Vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower. But why is it important to eat whole foods over ultra processed foods?
That,
Why should I
yeah,
care? I
I
mean, I
love
know
that
I care.
question. That's a great question. Ultra processed food consumption is linked to over 32 diseases, including diabetes, depression, and obesity. It's very tied to diabetes. In fact, a study in the Lancet showed that for every 10% increase in ultra processed food consumption, the risk of diabetes increases by 17%. So we might not think of these things, these treats and foods and convenience foods that we might eat as being dangerous, but there really are some detrimental health concerns associated with them.
Well, I think a lot of children are eating more ultra processed foods, and we're seeing a rise in chronic diseases in children that we have not seen before as well.
I completely agree. And having spent 10 years of my career working with families and children, that's something that is very alarming to me is how many of the foods that contain the artificial dyes that are known to have behavioral health issues in children are in foods that are marketed towards children. We might assume that brightly colored candies and things have the dyes. In fact, 2 out of 3 candies on the market contain dyes that are being proposed banned in some states and across the country. But some things we might not think about as much, like almost half of all sports drinks have those dyes in them. And cereals, something that we might give our kids before they go to school in the morning to try to set them up for a good day, very often contains some of those dyes that are linked to behavioral issues.
So, it sounds like the GoCo app is one thing, but just in general, how can people be making smarter decisions about buying the right products? Because I mean, you go in I mean, I've traveled, my wife and I have traveled, you go into grocery stores overseas, there's not as many choices, and the choices, quite honestly, are a lot healthier. But here, I mean, you literally have thousands of products in a grocery store.
Yeah, the typical supermarket has between 50 and 60,000 products in the US. It used to be 5 to 10,000 back in the 1950s. So have we invented that many pieces of produce? Absolutely not. That's where those convenience foods have really multiplied over the decades. And unfortunately, so have our waistlines. And there certainly is a correlation between those things. So, what we can do, I mean, I love the tip that you shared earlier about choosing things that have fewer ingredients. That's one that I always talk about is flip over and look at the ingredients. Can you pronounce everything in there? Are there things that you recognize as food in there? If there are not, we need to figure out what they are and why they're in that food product. Cooking more at home, that's certainly one way where we're going to have much better control over what we're eating. And I understand that life happens and we're going to go out and we're going to pick up convenience foods from time to time, but there's certainly ways we can try to make that healthier as well. I think, kind of a tip that's been around for a little while, I still think it's a good one, is to shop the perimeter of the store more often. That's where the fresh items typically tend to be, like the fresh fruits and veggies and dairy and protein options are around the outside of the store. When you get to the inside of the store, that's where the brightly colored, shiny packages competing for your attention all are. So only run in there to pick up the pantry staples that you need. I think, going back to if you are thinking about building a plate at home, I like to think of it, cut it in half immediately in your mind and fill half of it with produce. So fruits and vegetables, they can be frozen. That's fine if you don't have time to have the fresh ones, have some frozen on hand to have in a pinch. The other half of your plate, think about approximately a fist-sized serving of lean protein, and that can be plant or animal based, whatever you choose. And the other quarter, that could be whole grains. So when we're looking at grains, we want things that contain the whole grain. So 100% whole, whatever that grain is. We want to avoid enriched flours because those are the things that all the healthy stuff is removed from and then added back in the form of powdered vitamins. Enriched might sound like a good word, but that's a tricky word because it basically means all the good stuff's been taken back out and then artificial stuff's been added back in.
Yeah, and talk about the frozen because especially in I'll say the upper half of the U.S. here, if we're not in California, Florida, Texas, I mean, we don't have access to fresh vegetables and fruits in the wintertime, but frozen is a good alternative, right?
Frozen is a good alternative. The only thing you want to check really is that it doesn't have added sugar if it's a fruit. So you just want to see in there like frozen cherries, frozen pineapple. And those are great to have on hand. I have a bunch of frozen fruits in my freezer right now. Even though I live in Florida and can have fresh, I don't always make it to the supermarket. So it's great to have something on there I can just grab when I need it. Frozen vegetables, you want to make sure they're not adding sodium, salt, or any kind of sauce or dressing. You can make a much healthier sauce yourself at home and top your vegetables with it if you want to. So you want just the plain frozen vegetables and the plain frozen fruits that you can do a lot of things with them. You can throw frozen fruits in a smoothie. Vegetables can accompany any meal. Putting things together quickly when you don't have a lot of time to get dinner on the table, frozen can be a really helpful staple to have on hand.
Yeah, and on your comment about how much to eat, kind of the half, quarter, because there's actually a plate the hospital here uses when they do a diabetes session, talking about here's what your plate should look like. And then this center we're building in East Cleveland, we actually give out plates when we do the lunches there that are exactly the way you described them. And it actually has pictures of what vegetables should be in the top half, what proteins, what carbs, that kind of thing. Make it
Great.
easy for people to know what to do or what not to do.
Yeah, visuals can be really helpful and they can kind of stick with you as well.
So, how about doctors? There seems to be an effort by some medical schools to start doing more education around nutrition for doctors because their typical MO, my son is a doctor, is to kind of diagnose a patient and then prescribe usually a drug versus a food to kind of solve the problem. So what are some of your thoughts around doctors and nutrition and education?
I certainly think it would be great if doctors had more of a foundational knowledge of nutrition, but I also recognize that there's so much that they have to learn in medical school that there might not be time for the level of in-depth nutrition training, that a dietitian has. I mean, I have a 4-year degree and then 900 hours of interning and have to maintain my credentials by doing continuing education every year. So putting all of that on a doctor would be quite a lot. Yeah. And so, maybe the better route is to have a better, working relationship with doctors and dietitians. So many doctors, especially that work in a hospital or somewhere, they refer out to dietitians a lot, but in private practices, they might not have relationships set up with dietitians. So maybe that's somewhere where we could really kind of build some more bridges as between doctors and dietitians so that the dietitian can spend in-depth time talking about nutrition with the patient where the doctor doesn't typically have as much time to spend talking about that. But of course, I'd like a little bit of at least acknowledgement that food can be medicine as well.
Yes, yes. So talk a little bit about food as medicine. So I one of the interviews I did a couple of weeks ago was with a local grocery store, and they have like a chief medical officer as part of the grocery store, and they have wellness coaches. They have a dietitian, like a lead dietitian, then they actually have a wellness coach in every grocery store that they have, which I think is awesome. So talk a little bit about food as medicine, because that's the philosophy they have and why they've put these people in these different positions.
Yes, I love supermarkets that have dietitians.
There's not a lot of
So
them, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, food as medicine has been around for quite a while, but we don't probably always think of it as the first line of defense when we're talking about illness and things. It's certainly great for prevention, but it's also good for illnesses as well. Like if I think about diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes or even prediabetes, which over 50% of the population has some form of diabetes, including prediabetes. Food is so impactful on that. So we can't say food isn't medicine. You can completely reverse prediabetes with diet. So that is certainly medicine. You can lower your cholesterol with food choices. Many people will come to me and say, my doctor said if I don't lower my cholesterol by this time, I'm going to need to go on a cholesterol lowering medication. What can we do? So we can cut way back on the sources of saturated fat, cut way back on added sugars. That contributes to heart issues as well. We most often think about fat, but sugar's involved as well. Sugar's directly involved in triglyceride levels. And we can eat more healthy fats, the unsaturated fats that are in things like avocado and olive oil and nuts and seeds. And we can eat more fiber. So fiber helps remove cholesterol from the body, and fiber is in whole plant foods, whether that's whole grains or fruits or vegetables. So certainly food can be medicine for heart issues. Food can be medicine, I mentioned, for diabetes. We need to cut back on the added sugars, the refined grains. That's the ones I was talking about earlier with enriching. We want to choose more lean proteins because that helps keep our blood sugar more stable. So if we're trying to manage prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, we want to be having a good protein source with every meal to help our body more slowly digest the carbohydrates we're taking in. And then just food provides all the vitamins and minerals that we need. The old advice, eat the rainbow, when it applies to actual fruits and vegetables, not colorful cereals, actually is medicine. All of those vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, antioxidants that we need are in different colored fruits and vegetables. And that's one reason I think frozen produce can come in really handy because, like we said, up in the upper parts of the country, it's hard to get your hands on orange mangoes and dark red cherries
Mm-hmm.
fresh throughout the whole year, but those provide really valuable sources of nutrients. And the different colors indicate different dominances of antioxidants. So eating a variety of colorful produce is also medicine.
Well, when you freeze something, if they're doing it properly, like you say, they haven't added anything A, but B, they're freezing it at the source, so it's keeping its nutritional value. Versus if you're buying a blueberry and it's a fresh blueberry and it's January in the Midwest, it's shipped a long, long way. There's not a lot of nutrition left in that blueberry by the time it gets to your grocery store.
That's true. I'd still argue there's more nutrition in that blueberry than in a cereal that we're giving our
Well,
kids
yeah,
for breakfast in the mornings. So still better than nothing, but I completely agree. Locking in the freshness and the nutrients for freezing is a great option.
yeah. I mean, I just do frozen blueberries in the wintertime. It's not, yeah, just
Yeah, and they're
healthier.
great.
Yeah, and I've had a conversation. I'll just say a very famous doctor. He's not been on the podcast, but conversations with him. He's his answer to I'll call it the nutrition deficiency that we have in our diet is supplements versus food. So I've had this conversation. Well, why can't we just eat better? You need supplements. So there's not enough good food out there to. So any thoughts on food versus supplements?
I'm not anti-supplement, but I'm certainly food first. So I
Mm-hmm.
think food can certainly provide a huge majority of the nutrients that we need if we're prioritizing especially real foods.
Mm-hmm.
But, for certain people in certain conditions, supplements can sort of fill in the cracks, fill in the gaps. So I'm not anti-supplement, I'm just food first is all.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not anti-supplement either, but I know there are also some people that they're taking dozens and dozens of supplements. I don't know what the number is, but just dozens seems to be a lot of supplements versus eating better food and then having a few supplements to kind of help out.
Yeah, I actually work with people to help optimize their supplement routine. I see a lot of people that come to me on, I'm not kidding, like 30 different supplements. And
Yeah.
there's also such thing as too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times people don't realize that, one supplement they're having has, let's say, calcium in it, and their multivitamin has calcium in it. And then they're also taking calcium on top of that. And that's not ideal. So certainly check all the ingredients. Like you might think you're taking CoQ10, but it randomly has some other nutrient in there that you're also taking. And it's certainly possible to have too much of something. So definitely something I work with people on is let's see how we can pair this. Do we need everything you're taking? Is the first
Right.
question. And let's see if maybe we can pare this down a little bit. You know, are you actually low in these nutrients? If not, we might not need all of these, but a good quality multivitamin is not a terrible idea to kind of help fill in some of the nutrient gaps that we have for some people.
Yeah. I'd say like a vitamin D for again people up in the Midwest part of the country is probably a good thing, except for maybe
Yeah,
summertime. You get a lot of sun otherwise.
many people are deficient in vitamin D. Many people are also deficient in fiber, but I don't want them to take a fiber supplement. I want them to eat more fiber from the real foods that we're talking about.
Your body will appreciate it if you eat more fiber.
Yeah, that's something that if we're looking at foods in the supermarket, I think two big trends right now are adding protein to everything
Mm-hmm.
and adding fiber to everything. And might sound good in theory, but it's not really something that I am a huge fan of because that protein that's added is typically not high quality. The fiber that's added is typically too much. Um, I'm still a much bigger fan of getting your fiber from whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, getting your protein from healthy protein sources like fish, seafood. If you eat animal proteins, chicken, grass-fed beef, and things like legumes and lentils, eggs. If we eat those things, if we eat them a protein source with every meal, we don't need to purchase the protein bread and the protein crackers and the protein water. There's just, we don't need to add protein to everything. Those are ultra processed ingredients ultimately. So again, focusing on eating real foods instead of picking up the high protein everything.
And what are some things that would have the fiber when you say added fiber? So what
Cookies, like
cookies?
candy. Honestly, they're putting fiber in everything, and fiber is great. We need more fiber. Like most people are insufficient in their fiber intake, but it's not because they're not eating high fiber cookies. It's because they're not choosing whole grains and fruits and vegetables often enough. So, when you look at the ingredients of things, if cookies have 11 grams of fiber, it's because they added it in there, not because it's a fiber powerhouse cookie.
So if somebody wanted to change, so today they're eating a lot of ultra processed foods, but they want to start eating a healthier diet. Maybe they went to their doctor and they found they're pre-diabetic or diabetic, or maybe they've got a history in the family of heart disease or cancer or whatever the chronic disease might be. So they want to make a change. What do you recommend a first step or a couple of first steps people could start doing today?
Well, if they have the option to work with a dietitian, that would be fantastic. I also say don't wait. Like, let's get started right away. I have a lot of people that come to me and they say, well, I'm going to make changes for the summer. I'm going to wait until after the holidays. I'm going to wait till Monday. I always say, no, let's not wait at all. Let's start with your next meal. How can we make that very next meal healthier? But I also recognize the importance of starting small. I don't expect people to completely revamp their diet and their lifestyle overnight. So oftentimes I'll try to identify one place where we can make a really healthy change. I'll find out what their habits are throughout the whole day. What are you eating? What are you drinking throughout the whole day? If we can find one place where they're willing to make a healthy swap, like let's say they're hitting the drive-through every morning and they're getting a breakfast sandwich and a big sugary coffee. We can make such a huge impact if we can just start with that one meal. Let's think about some things we can prep ahead of time for you so that you can have them ready to grab in the morning, which would be even faster than going through a drive-through. And let's start cutting the sugar out of that morning drink. If you are willing to cut the sugar out of your coffee entirely, great. If not, let's cut it in half. Let's get you used to that taste and then let's cut that in half again. I challenge people that if you do that, when you go back to how much sugar you used to have, it's sickeningly sweet at that point. So we get really used to the amount of sugar that we're consuming and we kind of want more and more and more of it. But once you cut way back on it, when you try to have that much of it again, it's just not as good.
And I would say the same with salt. You recognize something when it has a lot of salt. I mean, a little salt's fine, but a lot of salt obviously is not.
Yeah, if we're using real fresh produce and we're adding a little bit of salt to it, that's going to be so much less sodium than we're getting from processed foods. So if we're cooking more at home, you're automatically going to be consuming less sodium, even if you add a little bit when you're cooking or preparing your foods.
Yeah, I saw a chef, this was many, many years ago, do a demonstration and he put how much salt is in like a can of condensed soup, put it in the palm of his hand and kind of held it up. I mean, it's shocking how much is in a can of soup.
And you would never use that much when you're making soup yourself. You would use some,
Exactly.
certainly.
Yeah.
We do need some sodium, but the amount of processed foods we consume puts us way over the top. And it's not even like the best form of sodium. It's a very processed salt that's added. It's not like a sea salt grinder that you might use at home to add
Right.
flavor to your food.
Exactly. So how about, do you have maybe a couple of success stories, patients that you've had that have come in, wanted to feel better from from a health standpoint, and you gave them some advice on how to proceed, and then I don't know, 6 months or a year from now maybe they weren't pre-diabetic anymore or diabetic anymore? Any stories like that?
Yeah, I think my favorite story is something that really still inspires me to this day is I worked with a patient who was severely overweight and we did kind of exactly what I described to you a couple of minutes ago. We took a look at everything she was doing and we started making some small changes. We did do that exact thing I mentioned with the coffee and the sugar. We started cutting it back slowly. A lot of times people will not eat all day and then they'll just eat a lot of food late at night. That's something that I come across a lot. So in this particular case, that was happening. So we started eating breakfast every day, and eating lunch every day and eating dinner every day and trying to eat more often and make good choices. And this particular patient actually lost over 100 pounds and was pre-diabetic and no longer was. And she actually went back to school to become a registered dietitian and now works with patients, helping them make healthier food choices as well. So, I mean, that's still going to be, I think, how I feel I've made the most difference in someone's life is that story. I helped somebody else find their passion for helping others make food choices. And then I'm just more recently working with GoCoCo. We are very much invested in our users' stories. So we always are interviewing our users and finding out what their story is, what they've accomplished from using the app. And one thing that we started to learn close to a year ago from interviewing our users is we didn't set out to create an app to help people with diabetes make healthier food choices. But what we were hearing from our users is that that's what a lot of them were using it for. They were using it to make better food choices to help manage their prediabetes and diabetes. So we actually started leaning more into that in the app. If during onboarding, you can select if diabetes or blood sugar is a concern for you. And if you'd like to have a diabetes alert pop up on foods that might not be the best choices for managing your diabetes. So the alert tells you if something has a lot of added sugar, refined grains, low in fiber, a lot of ultra processed markers. And then it gives you choices within a similar category that are a healthier option. It also has recipes and some education in there. And I've gotten to interview several people that have been using the app for 6 months to a year. And we've heard some really amazing stories, like a father that uses the app with his son who was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and they're using that to make much better food choices, and he's feeling very much more confident in knowing how to make choices for his son. So get some inspiring stories from GoCoCo as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so we're partnering with different organizations in Cleveland on the center, and one of them is University Hospitals here, and they're head of their diabetes group. And so we have a planning meeting coming up in a couple of weeks here for what to do next year. I'll actually mention this because she does a monthly workshop for diabetes patients. She talks about obviously eating healthier foods, things to avoid. So she has a dietitian come in, but they talk about exercise, they talk about sleep and mindfulness, and kind of the whole body, what you should be doing to help overcome your diabetes diagnosis.
Absolutely. Whole person care, whole body care. I very
Mm-hmm.
much believe in that as well. And I love that you offered to mention it to her. And I would love to speak with her as well, see if there's anything we can partner and do together.
Yeah. So, cooking food at home. So, why should people do that? I'm going to tell. I don't think I've told this story before, but when I was in sales, we always. I mean, I traveled a lot, so I had to watch what I ate because I put on a lot of weight the first 10 or 15 years, a lot of weight when I was in sales. And I also noticed when I went to these conferences that we had, these were internal meetings, IT organizations, I would get severe acne at these conferences. And I finally realized after about 10 years, it's related to the food that they were serving at these conferences, and it started bringing my own food to these conferences. And lo and behold, my acne went away. My point is people should watch what they eat. They can cook healthy at home. They can also, if they're traveling, they can bring things with them to eat a little bit healthier than what you might find at a conference or someplace like that.
Yeah, I agree. And who knows which of the many preservatives and additives were in that food that you were eating, maybe a combination of all of them that was leading to the skin issues. That certainly is something that I hear about from people as well. And I do always promote, trying to plan ahead just a little bit and pack some healthy foods with you. I tell people, like, you don't know if your plane's going to be delayed. You think you're going to eat when you get there, but what if your flight's delayed? Like, let's have some healthy stuff on hand in your carry-on so that you can grab something to tide you over until you get there. And then if you do have to eat something in the airport or when you're traveling, focus back on that plate method again, thinking about choosing something that has a lot of fruits and vegetables, some lean protein. Maybe it has to be something saltier than you'd regularly eat, like deli turkey, because you're kind of stuck somewhere, but choosing it in a wrap over on a ciabatta bun is going to be a lot less bread that way. So we can certainly work on making the healthiest choice in the situation you're in. But when you're cooking, you have the most control over what you're doing. So kind of what we've talked about, even if you add a little bit of salt, it's going to be way less salt than what you'd get at a restaurant or a convenience food. And cooking doesn't have to be complicated. It can be just putting some things together that are a piece of chicken, a sweet potato, and broccoli. That's a meal. That's a balanced meal. It doesn't have to be a complicated meal every night.
Yeah, and cooking at home, I mean, the whole reason we end with a recipe is it's really can take a small amount of time to make something healthy at home. If you go through a drive-through, you still got to drive there. You got to wait in line. You got to pick up the bag. You got to drive home. You're still talking 30 minutes to an hour to do that versus you can do the same thing in the comfort of your home. Your home's going to smell nice. Food's probably going to taste better if you're doing a good job. So what recipe did you bring to share?
Yeah, so I thought about what I wanted to share, and I thought about how we're not where I am, but the rest of the country is going to be heading into fall soon. And I was thinking about how much I love a good chili.
Okay.
Something I grew up eating a lot and something I still make, even if it gets a little bit cold in Florida, I'm like, let me make a soup or a chili or something. And what I really love about it is it's a balanced meal all on its own. You have lean protein if you're using ground turkey or ground beef or beans. You have the fiber from the beans. And what I also love about it is all of the different ways you can make it depending on what you have on hand. So it's a really great, just kind of throw stuff in a pot and forget about it meal. You can simmer it all day. You can have it at the end of the day. You can add whatever vegetables you have in the fridge. You can chop up carrots, onions, peppers, tomatoes. If you have a garden, like I love gardening personally and grew up with gardens, even up in Michigan. This time of year, maybe we're coming to the end of some of our stuff that we're growing. Throw that in the pot. So we do have a chili recipe base on the GoCoCo page that I was thinking about as my inspiration. But what I really love about the recipe is you can make it your own and you can make it different every time you make it. And it's something that's really easy to do. You can freeze it. You can have it left over for several meals in the future. So it kind of, to me, summarizes a lot of my nutrition principles and philosophies of planning ahead, cooking at home, using what you have in the kitchen, being able to modify it as needed. So I think for me, chili, especially coming into the time of year we're coming into, is really a perfect recipe.
Nice. Not had a chili recipe before, so that's nice. That's a first. And it is easy. I mean, you can just either a slow cooker or a pot, do it on a weekend, read a book, watch a football game. You don't have to do a lot to it once you get everything in there. So
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to make your home smell good, that is certainly a one
yes,
amazing way. That'll make your home smell amazing.
yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with, Julie?
I mean, I just think we've really hit on a lot of what I feel like we're both trying to spread the message of let's eat more real foods. It doesn't have to be overwhelmingly complicated. It doesn't have to be a fancy diet. It doesn't have to be trendy. Just going back to kind of our roots of eating more real foods. A big majority, let's say like 70 to 80% of our day should be real foods minimally.
Right. And I would just say, I mean, this time of year, about anywhere in the country, I mean, farmers markets, even the grocery stores here now are putting local foods on labels, stickers with a when you're buying something. So just try to buy local, especially this time of year and off season. You can get frozen to kind of supplement what you need from a vegetable or a fiber standpoint.
Yeah, and we want to, help make it a little bit easier for your listeners. So when they are shopping at the supermarket, we want to give all of your listeners a year of GoCoCo Premium for free. So they can use code BETTER when they download the app, and they'll get the premium version of the app for free so that they can scan foods in the supermarket and find out which ones have the ultra processed ingredients and which ones do not.
Nice. Well, thank you for doing that. And we'll post that on the show notes so people can get to the app as well.
Right?
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great talking with you.
Same. We need more Julies in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Julie.
Bye.
As I mentioned a few minutes ago, my sponsor is Cleveland Kitchen, the leader in fresh fermented foods. Try Cleveland Kitchen's crunchy and delicious krauts, kimchi, and pickles, packed with probiotics to support your gut health while elevating your meals from ordinary to extraordinary. Cleveland Kitchen, where taste meets wellness. Find it in the produce or deli section of your local grocery store or visit clevelandkitchen.com for more information. And please follow the show every week where you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Leave comments below or on my website, Eat Better Food Today.